So welcome today. This is the Asian Incoming Tourism course and the second webinar regarding Japanese outbound market. And today we have our keynote speaker is Mr. Mikael Hasegawa, who is introducing you the cross-cultural studies and cross-cultural issues related to Japanese market, and also in a way combination of Japan. This presentation will be taking around 1.5 hours, and it will be recorded. And at the same time, you are now introducing the first assignment, which is that 30 points. And Mr. Hasegawa will be introducing that assignment now immediately, so you can kind of benefit also the discussion what is related to these topics. And naturally, if you remember, you can choose one of these topics of Mr. Hasegawa's case. And then when we are going to have a Chinese similar kind of presentation by Mrs. Vivian Lee, then you can choose also these 3 other Chinese assignments. And in the end of the presentation, we will have also discussions if you have any questions regarding your courses, so we can have a chat. But I now give the floor to Mikael Hasegawa. Hello, Mikael, and welcome.
Hello, welcome everybody. I would like to warmly welcome you to Japan Cross-Cultural Study today. My name is Mikael Hasegawa, and I'm based here in Espoo. A very brief introduction about myself. First of all, I have been working over 25 years in travel industry, both in Japan and in Helsinki. And this is a list of my past career where I worked before. I used to work for the Embassy of Japan in Helsinki. And I have a experience of working in the ferry company, Tallink, Silja Line, Lapland Hotels, and the major tour operators, both in Japan and Finland. And I'm half Finnish, and my dad is Japanese, and my mom is Finnish. And my mom is from central Finland, so Jyväskylä area is very familiar for me. And I have lived in 5 different countries, Finland, Sweden, Estonia, UK, and Japan. And I do speak Japanese, Finnish, and English. And this is the summary of today's study. We will go through about these topics. And before we are moving on to the topics, I'd like to introduce you about the assignments I would like to do is I will later show you again this page, but before this study, I would like to share you about your assignment so you can be prepared during the of my presentations. So we have 3 topics that I would like to choose. The first one is design a travel package focusing on nature, design, and northern light for Japanese tourists traveling in Finland in post-COVID era, and explain how to reach them by using different marketing tools. And second one is how would you market Lakeland, Finland as a destination to Japanese tourists? Think about the seasonality, average length of stay, interesting place to visit, your customer segments in Japan. And the third one, why Finnish education related technical visit products are so popular purchase for Japanese market. What would you include to your school camp program? You can choose a destination which is located in Finland. You can also include Åland Island. And the deadline for your task is 20th of September. And you will be able to earn a maximum 30 points. and the format
20th of
is
December. Sorry, 20th.
sorry, 20th of December. And format in Word, maximum 4 pages. Don't forget to include sources and font size in 12, in Calibri or in Times New Roman. I will remind you again about this assignment, but this is good to know before I start my presentations. And before I start the assignment, I would like to show you a very quick video about Japan for 3 minutes. Okay, so I guess some of you might have been to Japan already, but you could probably show the brief image of Japan in the video. But I would like to start my presentations with a general overview of Japan about the numbers. As you can see, we have 3 big cities in Japan. Tokyo is the capital, and we have Osaka as the second biggest city, and Nagoya as a third. And economically, these three cities are very important in Japan. And we have 126 million, which is the 11th biggest population nowadays in the world. I saw today in the news that the world population is now 8 billion, but unfortunately, Japanese population is decreasing every year. And we have 11 million cities in Japan, more than 1 million people living in 11 cities, and our economy is the third biggest in the world after US and China. And this is a map of Japan. As an area, Japan is relatively quite same size as Finland. We have this main island, Honshu Island, where these three big cities, Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, are included. And we have the island, North Island called Hokkaido, and Kyushu, Shikoku. And in the south, we have Okinawa Island. And 126 people, 1 million people are living in this small island. And Japan is every year decreasing the populations, and we will face even more decrease in the future. And it is expected to decline by 0.8% per annum over the next 2 decades. And most of the majority of the population live in urban area. However, as you can see, the life expectancy in Japan is pretty high. And as you can see, the women's average life expectancy is 87 years old, which is one of the highest in the world. And 81 is for the men. And it is higher than UK or US, as you can see. And this is every year growing, actually. So in the next decade, it could women's life expectancy could exceed the age of 90. And as I said, even the life expectancy is growing, our population is decreasing every year, and we have a lack of kids. The majority of people are going to be over 60 years old in Japan, which is affecting our economy indeed. And this is the graph provided the source of how much. As you can see, the world highest GNP is from USA, and second is China. And Japan is ranked as the third. Japan used to be actually the second biggest economy in the world, but it has been catched up by China in the last 20 years. And now it is said, like my Kari said earlier, the sessions, India will soon catch up the GNP of Germany and Japan, and India will be soon the world's third biggest economy. However, if we go for the World Wealth Report, Japan has a second highest world high net worth individuals residents in Japan, which is 2.9 million US dollars. And this is only US is having more higher net worth in the world. So obviously we could say that there are quite wealthy people living in Japan and still considered to have the strong economy, even it has been shrunk. Now I would like to move on to the Japan outbound travel. Japan, during the COVID, Japanese borders has been kept closed for few years just after the COVID. And just a month ago, 11th of October, the Japanese government have decided to open the border for the foreigners. So most of the countries can travel to Japan without obtaining any visa. And if you are fully vaccinated, if you have been vaccinated 3 times, you don't have to show the negative PCR test anymore. Before, this PCR test was required for entering to Japan 72 hours prior to arrival, but this has been abandoned. And I would like to remind you first, talking about the Asian tourists traveling abroad, Japan is one of the mature market compared with South Korea or China. In 1964, Japanese started to travel abroad. And that was a year of the first Tokyo Olympics game in 1964. This is the beginning. And before the COVID, Japan was one of the important and longest established origin market for Europe. Around 2 million people travel to Europe in year 2090. And as an average, Japanese traveler visit like 3 countries in average in the duration of a week period in visiting 3 countries. And Japanese passport is considered to be one of the most powerful passport, which means that we can travel to the majority of the country without applying any visa. And what the Japanese people are interested in traveling. So this is the 5 top topics, why they want to, what they want to do, or what they are interested in. They are interested in the historical, cultural attractions, nature attractions, art galleries, museum, shopping, and gourmet. There is could be more or less this could go up and, but this is a top 5 what they enjoy during the trip. And I can show you the majority of the interest was like on the left for the sightseeing spots, shopping, experience of the local culture, and do more and see more. But it's now moving a little bit to the new value, which is could concentrate more for the good atmosphere, seeking more comfortabilities and travel and like living a local people and like find yourself during the trip. So that so the purpose of traveling is gradually changing to the new interest from now on. And how they book their travels, this is a very interesting figure. Like 20 years ago, before the internet was not so popular in Japan, people used to have this face-to-face service, but I can see that over 60% of the people book their trip with the internet. And of course, there are face-to-face services and other methods, but I would say the internet is the most popular method to book. But I would like to remind you also that especially the silver generation people, they are a little bit even they book their trip with the internet, they're still hesitating to make their payment through the internet. So they rather want to pay the travel expense through the bank account or other method, or visiting the travel agency using the travel card. So there are some hesitation, especially the older generations, to put their credit card details through the internet. They have some kind of fears, so they let them book through their kids or other people. They're not brave enough to complete the payment yet in the internet page. And we can see that about the half of the travel agent is based on the package tours, and the rest is like individual travels. But obviously, these corporate travels are included in this individual travelers. So still, half of the people are willing to have a kind of a package tours traveling for abroad. And if we look at the figure of the package tours, around 80% of the tours to Europe is a full package tours, and only 20% is just free time package tours where the accommodation and flight is only included. So quite many services are included for the package tours visiting European countries. And the current trend is it's moving on from group traveling to individual traveling, or a bigger group to smaller groups, and moving from an ordinary sightseeing to a purpose leading a program, and from a touring around visiting many countries to the single destinations, and travel often, but it is a short in time. And the keyword is a dynamic package tour, and services for solo travelers, rent-a-car, rental camping car, outdoor activities for families, farm stays, rural experience, and vacation program is a very popular nowadays during the COVID. So people can even walk during the travel time. And this is the very traditional outline of the Japanese travel industry. How the this travel industries is consisting on. So there is of course the airlines and the travel agency, but the unique point in Japan is we have a wholesalers. We have like a top 8 wholesalers who is very well known, and they're dealing with smaller sized agents, and they are dealing with a so-called land operators. We don't actually call them as a tour operators, because these land operators are only dealing with travel agents and wholesalers. There are very big land operators like Kuoni Tumlare, Miki Travel, Nordic Japan, and these are the very traditional who are actually doing all the arrangement in the local. And the wholesalers and travel agents are dealing with the retailers and the end customers. And this is a different products and segments what could be expected from Japan. As I said, the package tour is the most famous one, and the individual program, and we have a business travelers traveling often to Finland and northern country, and the wedding, honeymoons, and MICE. But unfortunately, MICE is more based to the neighbor countries like in Asia. So there are quite few MICEs in Finland or northern countries in budget-wise as well. There could be a sports event, music, school business, and the cruise-specific destinations. And the market is consisting for the silver senior generations, young generations, wealthy people, and students. And the sales go through the wholesale, direct sales, media sales, net sales. And this is the statistics for the outbound market. Before the COVID, it was gradually actually increasing every year. We had a big tragedy in year 2011. There was a Great East Japan earthquake in Japan in 11th of March. And that was actually quite shock in the travel industry. But actually, Japan got quite a quick recovery about the earthquake. So as a result, the figure for 2011 was not so bad. And there were, of course, a small up and down, but until the before COVID, we reached the figures over 20,000 passengers. And as you can see, during the COVID, these figures has dropped dramatically. And let's think about these customers who could be very important. The women are the primary decision makers in Japan. Short-haul destinations, word of mouth, long-haul destinations, tourist office and agents are very important. And preparations for the Japanese market is still appreciated to have a printed materials. It just doesn't work that you just give them a link and have a look. It could be a possible. It is always updated with the internet, but it's very good to have these printed materials. And the guidebook is still very common for the Japanese tourists to have with them during their trip. And weather information, transportations, all the practical information is always appreciated for the Japanese tourist. And concrete proposal are always attractive and give them always options, and they always like to think about it. Option A, B, C, it is kind of fun what to do. Treat them with a smile. It's a very wise to smile with them, and just avoid saying just enjoy. You just bring them to the nice place, and you just need to explain a little bit more, and it just doesn't work just to say enjoy yourself and see you in half an hour. You have to add something. And still you can treat them in a local way, but a bit of more explanation is always needed. If they like the trip, they could be a very good repeated customers, and they could tell to their friends, families, they could double your customers. So it is very important to treat one customers, and your customer segment could always grow after all. And always, this is a quite similar with the Finnish market. The customer could smile on the spot, but they could always complain after the trip. So it is always important for you to ask if everything is okay with them, and you could make a recovery if something is going wrong, or if there is something to do more to them. So it's always better to check if everything is okay with them. And this is the recent survey meant for the intentions for future travel. Would you like to visit any country or region as soon as it will admit a tourist? Only 13% answered yes. And if the country or region I want to visit will admit tourists, then I'd like to go. Only 20% 5% answered yes. So the majority of the people still want to think about this pandemic situations and they want to delay their plans. They want to see a little bit. So this is a recent situation in Japan that some people are of course willing to travel right now, but still over half of the people are considering when is the best time of the traveling. And as I said, these ladies from 20s to 40s are living in the urban area, like in Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, in these three big cities, are very important market for promoting overseas travelers. They are quite creative, they could be very well educated, they could have a quite good budget for traveling, and they have quite a variety of interesting, and they are quite flexible, and they have a quite good English ability, and they're very influential segment in the travel market in Japan. So even if we are talking about the honeymoon destinations, the majority of the females are deciding the destination. So it is a very important to have attractive products which will attract this female target living in the urban area in Japan. Now, I'd like to show you some interesting articles about the education's program and camps in Japan, because the education system is quite different. Japanese are very good at memorizing, and they're quite good at the math, and overall I would say that they're very clever people. But on the other hand, this Finnish education system is very respected and appreciated in Japan. And this code school in Finland is now launching a new programs to the Japanese school students. And this will give them more opportunity to improve their expression knowledge, and Japanese are not really good at debating, or they're just used to answering to the questions, which is for the selection A, B, C, or kind of that. So they're not good at filling the piece of paper with own expressions and ideas. So this is just an idea how they could learn something from Finland. And I can also show you that the Ministry of Education in Japan is every year increasing the budget for the school teachers. And many of the school teachers are visiting Finnish schools and having fellowships and learnings. And this is promoted both in the public sectors and also in the private sectors. So I would say that this education program could attract both Japanese students and also Japanese teachers, especially in Finland. And Japan is now again open for the travelers. And actually, I will show you a little bit more in the recent news of the Japan, but Japanese yen is getting very weak, which is not so good for the outbound travelers. But on the other hand, this has a very strong and good impact for the inbound tourists. So we are now actually having quite lots of incoming tourists to Japan nowadays, after the border has been opened. And I would like to remind you about the Japanese traveler. They have a limited English capabilities, and the holidays are relatively short. difference on the tribal lifestyle with the generations, and many are repeaters of overseas traveling. And expectation for traveling to Europe is so high, and quality conscious, appreciate to communicate with local people, and they also like the local food. Even some of the higher generations might want to eat Asian food occasionally, but it's still a local food is appreciated for the Japanese travelers. But Japanese people are not so flexible with the changes, and we quite often face with the changes because of the weather or local transportation, or some irregular could happen. But it is very important to update the recent informations and try to them understand what is a real situation. And Japanese travelers are very well known as a good manner people, and it is also appreciated in the hotel industry because they use a room very clean. And again, the decision makers are women for the long horse destinations, and this kind of the printed materials, a guidebook is very important for them. And occasionally, even though people book their trip with the internet, they could come to the travel agency, ask and get more travel practical information later on. So now I'd like to move about the summary of the cross-cultural study of Japan. So I'd like to start with the Japanese language, which could be unique for most of you. We don't know much about the roots of the Japanese language. It's too unclear, but some link to Baltic language like Turkish, Mongolian, or other languages, and some similarities with Korean, especially grammatically. And it's very easy to pronounce for the Finns, Italians, or Spanish. Japanese word always end with vowels. So we have three different characters, which is called kanji, hiragana, katakana. And Japanese text can be written in two ways: in Western style, in horizontal rows from top to the bottom page, or in traditional style, vertical from right to the left side of the page. Both of the writing style exists side by side today. So this is a basic hiragana letters, and most of the kids will learn all of these letters during the time of the nursery. So in other words, when they start school, they should be able to write all of these 48 letters. So this is a basic Japanese alphabet, hiragana. And next, this is a katakana. So what is the difference between hiragana and katakana is, so I would say the katakana is used since the 20th century. These are based for the words which came from abroad. So for instance, my name is Mikael. So when I write my name, I have to use a katakana. So except Chinese or some Korean names, all the foreigners' names use this katakana, and all the foreign countries and all the things which came out of Japan is expressed with katakana letters. This is the kanji. I would say most challenging part of learning Japanese. During the elementary school 6 years, the kids will learn 1,000 this kanji, Chinese letter, during their study. And if you are able to read 2,000 character kanji, you are basically able to read newspaper articles. And this is an excellent communication tools for us Japanese, because we can communicate with Chinese people instant by writing. So I have a Chinese colleague, and if something comes up unclear, I could always write something in kanji, and she understands what I'm meaning. So this is actually, I always feel this is a fantastic tool that the Japanese and Chinese people can communicate each other. So basic Japanese grammar is very simple. Complicated factors is the gender articles and distinction between a plural and singular missing almost completely. And conjunction rules for verbs, adjectives are simple and almost free of exceptions. Nouns are not defined at all, but appear always in the same form. So now I'd like to move on to the Japanese culture. I would like to show you something you shouldn't do in Japan or in front of the Japanese, because I see quite often that most of the foreigners pour soy sauce in the white rice, but we don't do it in Japan. So you eat with the pure white rice with the other dish. And the Japanese people are actually not expecting foreigner to use chopsticks. So you can easily order fork or knives if you don't feel comfortable with the chopsticks. But there are some rules that, you should never stick your chopstick vertically in your bowl of rice. This happens in the funeral situations. And avoid using your chopstick to pass food to someone else with your chopstick, because there is another chopstick provided for sharing food. And don't rub your chopstick together. This is very rude in Japan. And this is also quite typical. Many Japanese quite tend to invite foreigners when they visit guests. They go outside to eat. And it is quite common culture and habit in Japan that you pour the beer each other and you make sure all the other have drinks. And you shouldn't serve yourself a drink. Someone will always pour you, and you will also pour. So you do it at the beginning, but of course, after this you can pour yourself. But at the beginning, please make sure that you will pour someone's drink and someone will pour your drink. And working life in Japan is very hard. I would say there is a quite long working hours. I would say average working hours is from 10 hours to 12 hours, average working hours in Japan. And we have a robots in Japan, as you see on the left, quite many robot workers. However, the productivity of working is not so good in Japan. We might have too many meetings and it takes so long for the decision making. So this could increase their working hours. But yeah, it is quite common that people go to 9 and will stay at least until 7 or could stay until 9 p.m. So it doesn't happen like in Finland that people go home around 4 o'clock p.m. People work very hard for the purpose of gaining this bonus. Usually, most of the companies will pay bonus twice a year, once in the summer and once in the winter. And the average bonus is around 600,000, which is about 4,000 euro per bonus. Of course, this could be higher or smaller, but this is a quite good money for the workers. So people, and of course, this is something like incentives. So company also should have a quite good income for paying this bonus to employees. So this is why people work very hard to make an appeal to the companies that they have a good sales, they have a good attitudes, and so on. So this is quite common in Japan. But of course, some companies like a Western company, they have annual salaries and it's divided, and they could have a once a year incentive. So this is more traditional among Japanese companies. And let's look like a Japanese home. It is very modern, but also still traditional. This is very typical Japanese house that half of it Western style, but they still have like a tatami room, and we have this kotatsu mattress, which is warm and comfortable. And elderly people still prefer to sleep in tatami with a futon mattress, and the younger generations have this Western modern bed. So we have in a way two cultures, Western cultures and Japanese traditional cultures. And this is again very important. If you are used to Finnish cultures, we have a quite same attitude. So we never wear our shoes indoors, and we have to make sure that you take off your shoes before entering their house. And we have a very unique toilet. You don't need paper for wiping. So this modern toilet will clean away everything. But still, on the other hand, in the right down corner, we have this very old traditional Japanese toilet, especially in the countryside. So you can see the very modern, high technique of Japan and this traditional part of Japan. And taxis are very unique. Always you have a meter, so you don't have to be worried about how much you need to pay. But one thing, when you get onto the taxi, the door will open automatically. And it is common in Japan to sit in the backside, not next to the driver. So this door on the behind will open automatically. So don't open the door for the taxi in Japan. This is very unique. And the public transportation in Japan is very convenient and easy to travel, but you should always avoid this rush hour, as you can see up in the corner. This is a very typical scenery in Tokyo early in the morning and in the evening between 5 to 7 p.m. So this is a so-called rush hour, which is need to be avoided. And I have seen that there are 170 different train companies in Japan totally, and most of them are concentrated on the three big cities in Tokyo, Nagoya, and Osaka. So I just tried to take the copy of the metro, but it looks like this. There is so many train lines. So Helsinki Metro actually looks very simple and easy, but it is divided in different colors, but there are so many options to travel in Japan, and we have bus transportation in addition. And this is a very typical manner in Japan, that you have to keep your mobile phone in the silent mode. So it is not allowed to talk in the train, and it should not also ring during the train journey. So you should keep your phone as a silent mode in Japan. This is like a little bit similar with United Kingdom, but Japanese people love lining up. So you should never, you should always line up in the queue and not go into the queue or before. So this is very how the during the rush hour how it works in Japan. So everywhere in the shops or before getting on the train, there is a queue, and you just need to line up in the queue. And this is a business etiquette in Japan. So bowing is a very typical greeting manner in Japan for the Japanese each other. But obviously, the Japanese people are not expecting foreigners to do these bowing rules. This shaking hand is not also common among the Japanese, but of course, when the Japanese people meet foreigners, they could shake hands, and this could be a very normal way. But the Japanese people don't shake hands each other, and instead they will exchange their business card. So I will show you later about this SNS figures and trend, but in Europe and States, this LinkedIn is very highly used. So we just share email address and we are connected with LinkedIn. But the usage of LinkedIn is not so high yet in Japan. And it is a very common and popular to exchange a card. So if you don't have your business card and dealing with Japanese, this is a quite serious issue. So make sure that you provide your business card. And it's good to have some translations in Japanese if you can make a new business card. And Japanese people love pasta and hot spring. This is like a sauna in Japan. So most of the Japanese take a bath every day after their work. And even in a small apartment, a bathtub is always included. The Japanese tourists are also expecting a bathtub room, even visiting Finland. And most of the hotels in the Helsinki area have rooms with bathtub, but still it is rare in Lapland and the outside of Helsinki region. So Japanese people are a little bit aware of traveling in Finland. They have a sauna instead of a bathtub. So this is the most important manner when you are going to a bathtub or hot spring in Japan. You have to always wash yourself until you are clean before entering to the bus. And you shouldn't wear any swimming pants in the bathtub. And you just need, obey this local rule when you are having this bathtub. And if you have a tattoo in your arms or in your body, it is recommendable to hide it, because tattoo is still considered as a negative aspect because of the it is associated with gangs, and some public hot spring are actually not allowing people having a tattoo. So this tattoo issue is quite serious in Japan. But after the Olympics, Japan is also moving to the next generations. And I heard that there are like two different spas. Spa A is expecting customers with tattoo, and B is still not expecting. So the people can decide if they want to go where they will not see any tattoos, or if they don't mind, they can go to the A. So this tattoo culture is a little bit moving forward, but it is quite a big issue in Japan. This is a very unusual country, and you don't have to be concerned about the tipping in Japan. So it's a very opposite way of US. Tipping is not mandatory, or even they can come back. They can, if you leave some money, they can come and say that you forgot something. But of course, in the very expensive restaurants, there could be additional service charge, like a 10%, but tipping is not really common in Japan. And giving gift is a very important culture in Japan. So whenever they are traveling, they want to buy the local souvenirs and gifts. There are full of products available in Japan, so there are quite many things that can be purchased in Japan. So obviously, Japanese tourists are always looking for something exclusive that cannot be bought in Japan. So they appreciate these local handcraft products. It is very common, even if you work in the company, you buy some sweets for your colleagues, neighbors, friends, or to your family. And again, it is a very funny culture in Japan that we have this called hangaeshi. This means that if you get a kind of gifts, for instance, a value of 100 euros, you always give it back with a half of value, I would say like a 50 euro. So you get something gifts and you give it back. So this is how the economy is running in Japan. So you send New Year gifts and you send them again. And number 4 is considered an unlucky number in Japan. So there is no 4th floor in the hospital in Japan. Simply number 4 means death in Japan. So try to avoid number 4 for the Japanese people. I think many of you might have tried Japanese food once in your life, but this is the some pictures of Japanese food, and I would say Japan is one of the best gourmet city country where you can enjoy a different kind of food. And we have over 200 Michelin restaurants in Tokyo, and in Japan, I think we have quite many of the Michelin restaurants after France. So you can enjoy not only Japanese cuisine, but also a high sophisticated food from the all of the world. But now I will concentrate more with the Japanese food. And I'm quite sure that some of you might have tasted this kind of dish in the past. On the right, you can see a sushi. I would say this is a real sushi that can be tasted in Japan. And in the middle, you can see the photo of sukiyaki, and on the left are tempura, fried prawns. But I would say these food are often served for the special occasions, for the celebrations or anniversary. So this is not our casual food where families eat often at home. So this is more like you eat outside or you cook when you receive a guest. So this is a very basic Japanese home food consisting of white rice, and we eat miso soup, and the pickles is assorted dishes, which is always included in the Japanese home food. And this is more like a casual food. You could eat like a fried pork or chicken, and sashimi, raw fish instead of sushi, grilled fish, grilled chicken, and more like a beans, natto beans, and more like a steamed dishes. So this is a very typical Japanese homemade food, which Japanese people enjoy at home. And this is a picture of the breakfast in Japan. Actually, the consumption of the rice is decreasing in Japan, and people are switching more to the Western style of the breakfast. So most of the people have a coffee or tea with a bread or eggs on the left-hand side. So there was a discussion in early 90s that many of the Finnish hotels would have provided Japanese breakfast for the Japanese tourists, but they could see that most of the Japanese tourists enjoyed the local breakfast. So Finnish breakfast or Scandinavian breakfast was actually more famous, and the consumption of the Japanese breakfast not that popular anymore. So, but on the right-hand side, you can still see the very typical Japanese breakfast with rice, miso soup, with grilled salmon, with natto, beans, and some pickles. So this is more like eaten during the weekend or special occasions in the domestic holiday occasions. And this is, again, you will see many kind of a vending machine in Japan. You can buy food or drinks. You can see in every street in Tokyo, this kind of vending machines. But it is not common to eat food in the street like in the Europe or in the United States. So you should sit somewhere in the park or in the bench and have your food. So this is eating, walking is not good in Japan. And I earlier introduced about the educations in Japan, but this is quite similar with Finland and other European countries, that the kids will start elementary school at the age of 6 or 7, and they have a 6 years elementary school and will move on to the lower secondary and the high school, and then to the university. And it is unique. Most of the school have this kind of a school uniform. So many of the school try to have attractive uniform, so they will get enough students for their school. So at the time of the university or higher education, this uniform will be abolished. But until the time of the high school, student will wear this kind of a school uniform in Japan. And in Japan, holiday is relatively very short. You will 10 to 15 days holiday every year. But as you can see on the left, the consumptions of the paid holiday is very low in Japan. only 39% of the holidays are used. This is maybe because people want to save this holiday because many of the companies don't allow the sick leave. So they just want to save some holidays for just in case. So longer holiday is very challenging in Japan to have. But instead, we have a so-called public holidays every month. So people can easily combine their year paid holiday with this kind of public holiday. So they could probably make their week holiday up to 10 days or something. So this is something good for the Japanese outbound travel industry, that there are so many Japanese public holidays almost in every month except June and October. And now I would like to mention about the religion. About 80% Japanese people belong to the Shinto religion, and 66% are belonging to Buddhist, and around 1.5% are Christian in Japan. Why the Shinto and Buddhist are over 50? Because they belong to both. This is very interesting, but I'm personally a Christian and I believe only one God. But in Japan, this is not easy. There are existing so many gods in Japan, and Japanese people want to belong these different religion. And the Shinto religion is based on the worship of the nature. This is more than one god and has no founder or no script, but this is more like something to do with purity. And Shinto, that is in the shrines. So we have hundreds of shrines in Japan. So Shinto is belonging to this shrine. And again, maybe some of you know about the Buddhist. This was introduced through the China and Korea to Japan in the 6th century. And Buddhist teaches how to reach the enlightenment. So Buddhist design details in the temple. So we have also thousands of temples in Japan. And you can see in this figure, newborn babies belong to Shintoism. And of course, there are some non-religious. But this is very interesting if we go to the wedding. 65% of the couples are willing to have the wedding in the church. So they want to have their wedding in Christian way. So this was very interesting for me as well. Even they are Shintoist or Buddhist, they want to have Christian wedding. And again, funeral, maybe this Buddhism is a more common to have a funeral way. 77% are only in Christian way in the church. Now I'd like to move on to the hot news topics in Japan. As I said, Japan has lifted up the visa requirement for the foreigners. So we can see quite a many of the tourists in Japan, and the airline company could now fly to all of the Japan with no restriction number of the entry. The Japanese yen is a slump against the US dollar. This is a concern, but there is also some positive points for And Japan has started a domestic campaign called a Go To Travel campaign. So maximum 50% of the travel expenses are covered by this campaign. So you can travel like a 200 euro values in 100 euro. So you get more than it is. So this could be one reason that still many of the Japanese are concentrated on the domestic travel, because this campaign has been so attractive. I can see the recovery of the outbound travel from Japan to Europe is still slow. In January, Japanese yen was 115, and last month they made a record that $1 was against 150. So US dollar was becoming very high against Japanese yen as well as a euro. This is again to remind you the current trends and the keywords what we could do for the Japanese market. And I'd like to share about the Ukrainian war situation in Japan. It has impacted airlines. COVID is ending and free travel was starting for the Japanese, but unfortunately, Russian airspace is now closed and it's hitting the European and Japanese airlines because they cannot fly over the Russia anymore. And Finnair is getting one of the biggest hit on this issue because it used to be the fastest airline connecting Europe and Asia. But still, daily flight to Tokyo is operated with Finnair now. And this is the new strategy of Finnair to Japan market. They are flying a north route on the way back. And this is a 30% longer flight time due to avoid Russian space. Japan block time is from 10 hours to 13 hours, but actual flight hours is only 12. And it is still fastest airlines from Japan to travel to Nordic and the Baltic countries. But the biggest headache is they cannot have this 24 hours rotation and operation. So they have to use 2 aircraft for 24 hours. So this is not really economical for the airlines for operating. And this is how it was before the flights between Japan. Finnair was flying to 5 cities, Japan, from Helsinki, Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, Fukuoka, and Sapporo. And Japan Airlines had a daily flight from Helsinki to Tokyo, Haneda. And SAS from Copenhagen and All Nippon Airways, ANA, was planning to fly to Stockholm from Tokyo, Haneda. But as a reality, now we have only a daily flight from Finnair daily flight to Tokyo, Haneda. 2 flights are remaining to Narita, and Japan Airlines are currently operating 5 flights a week. So this is a situation about the flight between Japan. And as you can see in the map, before the collapse of Soviet Union, this was a route how Finnair operated the flight between Tokyo and Helsinki. And this is a flight map on the way back from Tokyo to Helsinki, it goes over the North Pole. But ongoing flights from Europe to Japan, the west wing is quite strong. So many of the flights are operated over the Turkey, Kazakhstan, through the China. So they have the southern bound and the northern bound, but the Russian airspace is not used recently anymore. And now I would like to think about the marketing in Japan. Japan is the third largest market in the world and representing the 10% of the world economy. And we have 126 million people in Japan, and how we can reach them from Finland. As I said, especially for the silver market, there are some approaches like TV commercials, or use the advertise for the travel magazine, newspapers, or interviewing advertising agencies. Still Japanese tourists are having this Chikyu no Arukikata guidebook, JTB rule book. They are always holding this guidebook. So it is one of the marketing tool to use these guidebooks. And this is the figures how Japanese people what kind of tools they are using. Like we have 1 to 6 million people, but it's a very interesting. Some people are having 2 mobile phones, so there are like 200 million mobile connections, and 118 million internet users, and about 1 million social media users, which is quite high. Yeah, as you can see, people are apparently having their private phone and the company phone. So 2 devices are used, and 90% of the populations are internet users. So we cannot really avoid marketing without internet. And this is a very interesting about the different SNS users. Line is one of the very popular tools. It is a little bit similar with a WhatsApp, but this is a kind of a communication tools, and the most of the Japanese people are connected with this line. So if you don't have this line, it's a free of charge, and it's a very easy to be installed. So if you want to have a connections with Japanese, first things to do is to launch your line account. And we have a very high YouTube users, Twitters, and Instagram. Instagram is more popular than Facebook. But as you can see, we have a very few LinkedIn users. So it is very hard to reach Japanese with a LinkedIn. So these are the very important and convenient tools for reaching Japanese. And we can see the genders of the line or Yahoo. I will later show you about the comparison with Google and Yahoo, but for the search engine, Yahoo is very popular in Japan. If you want to, we in the Western country, we Google and we find something with Google, but in Japan, this Yahoo Japan is one of the most important tools to find out the products. There are high users of Yahoo. And now I can show you, actually, Google is also becoming famous in Japan as a worldwide. So Google is slightly higher than Yahoo, but I would say it's almost equal with Yahoo Japan. And if you are looking for something domestic in Japan, I would still go to Yahoo Japan, and Google is more for the international aspects. And again, about the airline strategy, Russian airspace is closed, and Finnair is trying to persuade that this Nordic country, Baltic, is still fastest way to travel from Japan, and the good connections with the early morning flight arriving to Helsinki in 4:30 a.m. and the departure in the evening, which has a good connections from the Europe. And most of the flights are now operated in the central airport Haneda. This is also very good for Finnair and Japan Airlines to have connections with the local cities in Japan. But sometimes if you have a good connections with airlines, it's a very good source to do the marketing, because airlines want to have this kind of cooperators, how they could promote Finland and Nordic countries in Japan. So it is always good to contact and have a good relationship with the airline, and they could be one day one of your important partner as well for promoting Japan. Yeah, this is the new strategy of the airlines and also the Japan travel, outbound traveling, nature history, education program, and good European network. And both ways are now a night flight, so they can sleep well in the plane. And both Finnair and Japan Airlines are concentrated to Haneda Central Airport, which is only 15 minutes by train to the central. Now, time is 24:06, and I would like to remind your assignment again after my presentations. So you can choose one topics from these three. So I repeat, one is design a travel package focusing on nature design and northern light tours for Japanese traveling in Finland in post-COVID era, and explain how to reach them by using different marketing tools. What are the most important selling points? Second, how would you market Lakeland, Finland as a destination to Japanese tourists? Think about seasonality, average length of stay, interesting places to visit, your customer segments in Japan. Why Finnish education related to technical visit products are popular purchase for Japanese market? What would you include to your school camp program? You can choose a destination which is located in Finland, and you can include Åland Islands. The maximum points you will earn 30 points, and format needs to be essay in words, max 4 pages, and please don't forget sources. Font size 12 in Calibri or in Times New Roman. And the deadline is 20th of December, uploaded in Modo. I would like to thank you very much. Arigatou gozaimasu. Kiitoksia paljon. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Mikael. I'd like to ask you, actually, there was a request that could you tell like a 10 most common Japanese words that it might be useful for these students who might be cooperating or like to travel to Japan. So could you teach us few of those words?
Okay, so I'll try to think of 10 words. So Japanese people want to thank you always. So arigato is a very good word to learn. If you want to say politely, it's arigato gozaimasu. But for foreigners, I think arigato is well enough. And you could say goodbye, sayonara. And if you meet first time, you could say hajimemashite. Nice to meet you, hajimemashite. And what I could say,
Good morning.
if you, yeah, you could say oishikatta. Oishikatta is, you can use for the food. If you have a lovely food, oishikatta desu. Oishikatta. Or maybe kawaii. Many people know this word like a pretty, kawaii. And what else?
I was writing there some of these words also in the chat box. Hajimemashite.
Hajimemashite.
Ohayou gozaimasu.
Ohayou gozaimasu. Good morning.
Konbanwa.
Ohayou. And of course, konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. Yes.
And
for males and females, they have a different, like a polite way to say that. So you can hear from when the people are talking in Japanese that they have a different. This now it's a male, now it's a female.
Yes, you're right. There are pretty different way of the expressions among the men and women. So some of the Western man who has a Japanese wife or something, they might have the way how they talk in the women's way. They might put like a ne, yeah, in the end. Yeah, there are some ways what the women's are talking. Yeah.
Also, there's like this polite way where you say like Hasegawa-san or Hasegawa-sama. What is there?
Yeah, sama is a very polite way. If you want to, if you're talking with your customers, they would call me like a Hasegawa-sama. But between Kari and me, I could say Kari-san. We are more casual. And it is still common that you use a family name each other in the office. I would say like a Harone-san. And if you're really in a good friend, I could call like a Kari or Bibian. But otherwise, we call each other with a family name, and we always end with san. And sama could be even more polite with customers.
You can hear many times Japanese people saying, or like thinking, I know, where this is going.
This is like a well, and like I told you, the Japanese languages, we could have, in the end, we can make the sentence positive or negative. So you just talk. So in the end, you can make it as a positive. So you can still think if you're not sure if you want to have it or not, you can make it, yeah, your decision in the way. That's why, yeah, people are not good at decision. They're not a good decision maker, so they could live with hesitating by say, no, sort of, yeah. Yeah, but it's a very good to put, even if you just send an email to Japanese, they would love it to put the san in the end. So they could appreciate you, and they will know, oh, you know about the Japanese, and that will give you all the positive image of yourself. So this is one of my advice if you have a chance to deal with the Japanese people. Mm.
Well, is it for Japanese people difficult to say no when you have a business meetings?
Yes, they wouldn't say no. They could say that they will think about it, and they will not give you a no answer right away. But I'm originally from the capital region in Tokyo, but I have learned that the Osaka people are more commercial people in the Western Japan. And if Western people, Japanese people say that if they will say they will think about it, that is a definitely a negative answer. You should never go again and ask, what is it? It is all already said that they don't want to have it, and the answer is no. So it is true that they are not quite straightforward people. The writing a Japanese letter, it starts with the seasonal greetings, and it doesn't come, it comes really in the end, and they will tell you a very unclear way. But so even I understand Japanese, I have to read very carefully the letter and what it's all about and what they're really meaning. So it is a very unclear, and most of the European languages and even English is a very straightforward, and at the beginning if it is something positive or negative. But in this Japanese languages and society, they are not used to saying no. So you have to carefully find a reason, and you have to give more option to think about it, and you have to but Japanese people always follow the deadline, so it is always good to have the deadline mentioned. When it is your deadline, now you can have the another dialogue. Hey, deadlines already approaching, and what is like this. So they quite follow the rules, and they are quite a good manner people. Especially they keep all the agreement, payment. You will not have any conflicts about this. But there are so many options, and working life is so competitive in Japan. So it is, you have to have your products attractive. You have to also respect their local ways. So it is not so easy to make a business. But once, if you get a long relationship with your Japanese customer, they will come back, and we have this trust and reliability. And it's a long last relationship with the Japanese. And I would say it's a good customers in the end. But there are challenging and lots of works to be done always with Japanese market, in my opinion.
Thank you, Hasegawa-san. Thank you, Mikael. And I will conclude here the recording. But